What's going on, guys? So in this video, we're going to be going over how to use your previous data from all the traffic that you've ran on Google or YouTube or Facebook and be able to use that data to have YouTube recommend you exactly what targeting it thinks you should use. So before we go into this module, you're going to want to check out the other video on my channel. It says something about audience setup, how to set up custom remarketing audiences on YouTube. You are going to want to watch that first and get your audiences set up, because you won't be able to use these recommended audiences if YouTube hasn't already gathered data. So you first must gather data, which you can find in that video. And after you gather that data from your funnel pages, regardless of where the traffic is being run from, by the way, even if you're just running Facebook traffic right now, you still want to have those audiences up, because Google can analyze that traffic, even if it's sent from Facebook or any other traffic source, and still recommend you what targeting you should be using on YouTube. So go set those audiences up if you haven't already. If you have already set those audiences up, then you can proceed with this video. So what we're going to be doing is showing you exactly how to use these audiences that YouTube recommends and go into some use cases as to when to use them. So where you're going to go, and this is our dashboard, you're going to go to Tools and Settings, and you are going to go to Audience Manager. Now, here's all the audiences that we created in another module. I believe maybe these are the exact ones we created in that module. What you're going to do is you're going to click on them, and you're going to go down here to Audience Insights. Now this one's going to be empty because we need a list with more than 1,000 people on it. So I'm going to switch to another account so you can see an example of one that actually has some data. So this is what it'll look like when you actually have some data, when you actually have a bunch of people that have landed on your landing pages and have fired your Google tags. So you have two basic sections here. You have in-market audiences and you have affinity audiences. Now, in terms of the actual difference between these two, there really is none. In terms of what you're doing on YouTube and actually running ads, affinity audiences and in-market audiences are essentially interchangeable. You can treat them as the same thing. Now, what you're going to notice here is an index score, and they're arranged from highest index to lowest index. The ones with the highest index are your most highly correlated audiences. So let's say I'm looking at data for my landing page. The first page people hit on my funnel, I built an audience out of it, and now we're looking at the audience insights. This is going to be the most related audience to the people who have landed on that lander. This one's going to be second most related, third most related, and so on. So these are extremely powerful, and you want to test them in this order. I like to start from the very top and go to the very bottom. I like to group these in groups of 3 when I'm testing. That's optional. You can group in groups of 1, groups of 2, groups of 3. I wouldn't exceed groups of 3. Once you exceed that, it tends to spread your budget too thin, and YouTube doesn't really put any budget towards a lot of the audiences. So I recommend testing these in groups of 3. You can test your in-market, and you can also test your affinity. Now, you might be thinking like, okay, these seem extremely, not related to my niche. And you may be right. Like there's odd stuff in here, like avid business news readers. I guess that's not a really odd one. But like green living enthusiasts, like, okay, that's a little bit weird. Banking and finance. These seem pretty general, but they tend to work very, very well. It is random, just like all other audiences. Some of these will flop, some of these will crush it, but that's something that you kind of have to take on. Now, if you're in a really narrow B2B niche and you're looking at these are probably too general. Much like most other audiences, if you're doing narrow B2B targeting, you're going to want to layer these. On their own, they're probably a little bit too broad for a lot of B2B targeting. They need to be layered with either keywords or topics. So narrow B2B, layer these. If you're doing lead gen or anything broad, e-commerce, different types of info products, or like make money online, you can stay really general with these and just run traffic to them outright without really any issue. So highest index first, work your way down to the lower indexes. You're going to notice that with your audiences here, let's go back to Audience Manager. You're going to notice that your pages that are earlier on in your funnel tend to be able to run this data first, because you need audience sizes of 1,000 plus. And because of that, your lander is going to get the amount of views first to where you can actually use audience insights. And eventually you're going to be able to have your thank you page and deeper parts of your funnel. But obviously you need a lot of traffic. You know, if your thank you page is like calls scheduled, that means 1,000 calls scheduled before you can run audience insights campaigns. So it can take a little while before you can run this on the deeper parts of your funnel. But as soon as you're able to test this, even just off of the landing page, I highly recommend doing it if it applies to your niche. These are very powerful. These tend to be some of the best new audiences to test. Otherwise, if you're using Google data, built-in audiences on YouTube, which you're going to be doing a lot of depending on what niche you're in, it can be kind of hit or miss. You're kind of throwing darts at a board and hoping one or two lands. And because of that, using these insights based upon your actual data, based upon these index scores, can drastically improve your chances of really hitting a bullseye when it comes to audience testing. So make sure you set up your audiences first. That's in another module if you haven't done that already. After you get that data, start running these immediately. They're very powerful. They're going to improve your campaigns and you're going to get better results with them and save money ultimately, because you're not just testing random audiences. You're testing audiences based upon the Google, the data that you have and the recommendations from Google. So guys, I hope this was valuable. I hope you go out and test some of these. If you want to see more videos like this, I have them over here in a little box. If you want to learn more about YouTube ads and ask me questions directly, I have a free Facebook group. You can join that below. We go live every Wednesday at 7 and I'll answer your questions live on a video call. If you're interested in using YouTube ads to grow your business, I have a private coaching program. You can click the link for that below and speak to me directly if you have any questions about that. And if you want to subscribe to the channel, we release about 3 or 4 videos per week on here. There's a link for that beneath my little square right now. So guys, I hope that was valuable. Hope you learned a lot. I hope you go out and implement these tactics, and I'll see you guys in the next module.